$200,000 a year. That is the number most people spend their entire careers chasing. And in 2026, a growing number of people who actually earn it are living paycheck to paycheck. I'm Max of Monkey Money, and today we are running the math that explains exactly why. No fluff or vague commentary about inflation, actual numbers, actual line items. Because once you see the structure of what is happening to a $200,000 income in 2026, a lot of things start making sense that probably felt confusing before. Let us start with the foundation, because this is the part that most high earners genuinely have not calculated. $200,000 in 2021 is worth approximately $237,000 to $250,000 in 2026 when you adjust for cumulative inflation. That means if your salary has not increased by at least $37,000 to $50,000 since 2021, you are earning less in real terms than you were 4 years ago. Even if the number on your paycheck looks bigger, this is not a rounding error. This is a structural erosion of purchasing power that happened gradually enough that most people did not feel it as a single event. Instead, they felt it as a series of small shocks: the grocery bill that kept climbing, the insurance renewal that jumped, the daycare invoice that seemed impossible. Each one felt like a one-off. Together, they represent a permanent reset of what $200,000 can actually buy. Inflation in this cycle was not uniform across all categories. It hit necessities the hardest: housing, childcare, healthcare, food, which is precisely the spending that high earners cannot opt out of. You can stop buying luxury goods when money is tight. You cannot stop paying your mortgage, your health insurance premiums, or your childcare bill. So let us move from the abstract inflation math to the concrete monthly reality. A household earning exactly $200,000 in gross salary, let us assume one earner, living in a moderate to high cost state, is going to take home significantly less than that number suggests. Here's what that actually looks like. Federal income tax on $200,000 for a single filer in 2026 runs approximately $43,000 after standard deduction. Add state income tax in California, that is another roughly $14,000. In New York, approximately $12,000. Even in a state with no income tax, you still carry the full federal burden. Then there is the employee side of FICA, Social Security and Medicare, which takes another approximately $8,000 off the top. We are now at roughly $65,000 in taxes for our California earner, leaving $135,000 in gross take-home. If that earner is contributing 10% to a 401k, which is the minimum most financial advisors recommend for someone at this income level, that pulls another $20,000 out pre-distribution. Monthly take-home after taxes and basic retirement contributions, approximately $9,500 to $10,000. That number surprises people every single time. $200,000 a year sounds like $16,600 a month. The actual monthly number that hits the bank account after taxes and basic retirement savings is closer to $9,500. That is a 43% gap between gross salary and real take-home. Now let us build out the expense side, because this is where the picture becomes genuinely stark. Housing is the first and largest line item, and in 2026, it is consuming a dramatically higher share of income than it did even 5 years ago. In the major metro areas where most $200,000 earners live and work, the median home price in 2026 ranges from $750,000 to well over $1 million. At a $1 million home purchase with 20% down, a 30-year mortgage at current rates produces a monthly principal and interest payment of approximately $5,000. Add property taxes, homeowners insurance, and HOA fees where applicable, and total monthly housing cost lands between $6,000 and $7,000. That is 60 to 70% of net monthly take-home on a $200,000 salary. For renters, the situation is not dramatically better. A two-bedroom apartment in San Francisco, Los Angeles, New York, Seattle, or Boston runs between $3,500 and $5,000 per month in 2026. A couple with one child needing two bedrooms in a school district worth attending is typically looking at the higher end of that range, which brings us to the line item that is quietly responsible for a significant portion of the financial stress that high-earning families are reporting in 2026: childcare. For a family with two children in full-time care, annual childcare costs in major metro areas have reached $40,000 to $60,000 per year, paid entirely from after-tax income. That is $3,300 to $5,000 per month every month until both children reach school age. For a family with a newborn and a 3-year-old, that cost is not 2 years away. It is right now layered directly on top of the housing payment. Combined housing and childcare costs for this household, $9,000 to $12,000 per month. Monthly take-home, approximately $9,500 to $10,000. That math produces a margin of $0 to $1,000 per month for food, transportation, healthcare, out-of-pocket, clothing, utilities, phone, and every other line item in a modern household budget. This is not a lifestyle problem. This is an arithmetic problem. I want to pause here and acknowledge something, because I know this data is heavy. If you are a high earner reading this and feeling a strange combination of validation and despair, that reaction is completely rational. It is roughly equivalent to discovering you have been carefully peeling and saving every banana you earn, only to find out a very large, very well-dressed gorilla called inflation has been quietly sitting on your pile since 2021, and his name is on the lease. Now let us layer in lifestyle creep, because this is where the structural problem meets the behavioral one. High earners are not immune to lifestyle inflation. In fact, the research suggests they may be more susceptible to it because the income feels large enough to justify upgrades that would be clearly unaffordable at lower income levels. The car lease that feels reasonable at $200,000 a year. The private school that feels like the responsible choice. The vacation that feels earned. A study of earners at this income level found that 43% had delayed paying a bill in order to cover other essentials, not because of a financial emergency, but because of the accumulated weight of regular monthly commitments. 43% of people earning $200,000 or more. This is not a fringe phenomenon. This is a structural feature of how high-income households are allocating resources in 2026. The mechanism is predictable. Income rises, lifestyle adjusts upward to match, fixed costs increase, and the margin between income and outflow stays thin, regardless of the absolute number. In personal finance, this is called the hedonic treadmill. At $200,000 a year, you're running it at a very expensive pace. The geographic dimension of this problem is also worth naming directly, because the income number means something completely different depending on where it is earned. In San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Boston, and Seattle, the cities where a significant proportion of $200,000 earners actually live, that income no longer places you in the upper class. In California, New Jersey, and Massachusetts, $200,000 is now considered the upper boundary of the middle class, not the entry point to wealth. This is not a subjective feeling. It is reflected in the data on housing affordability, quality of life indices, and the salary levels that financial planners in those markets use as benchmarks for comfortable living. When the math of buying a median-priced home in your market requires a household income of $250,000 or more just to qualify at a reasonable debt-to-income ratio, a $200,000 income is functionally a housing-constrained income. You are not poor. You are not struggling in any absolute sense. But the gap between what $200,000 sounds like and what it actually enables has never been wider. If you've made it this far, give us a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. It really helps support what we're building here at Monkey Money, and we appreciate every single one of you. Now, back to the math. There is another dimension to this story that doesn't get enough attention, and it changes the framing significantly. Many of the households reporting financial stress at the $200,000 level are dual income households. Two earners who together reach that combined income, not a single earner. A household where both partners earn $100,000 faces a different tax structure, different childcare dynamics, and different career risk exposure than a household where one person earns $200,000. As we covered in a previous video on two-income households, the second income in a dual-earner family arrives pre-committed to a set of costs: childcare, dual transportation, higher marginal tax rates that significantly reduce its real contribution to the household balance sheet. Two earners at $100,000 each are often less financially resilient than one earner at $200,000 because they have already deployed both income sources and have no backup if one disappears. The safety net that a stay-at-home partner provides, the ability to re-enter the workforce if needed, has been traded away for a combined income that nets out to a thinner margin than it appears. Here is a useful way to think about what is happening to a $200,000 income in 2026. Imagine being handed an enormous bunch of bananas, the kind that looks genuinely impressive from a distance. But then the tax authority takes 43% of them, your landlord takes another 60% of what remains, your child care provider has first claim on most of the rest, and you are standing there with 6 bananas wondering why everyone keeps congratulating you on being so well fed. So what does a $200,000 earner actually do with this information? Because the goal of this video is not to generate sympathy for high earners. It is to give a clear-eyed account of a mathematical reality that affects financial planning at every income level. The first and most important move is running the actual numbers on your specific household, not the theoretical numbers. Most people at this income level have a rough sense of their take-home pay, but have never built a complete picture of fixed monthly commitments versus actual discretionary margin. The gap between what you think your margin is and what it actually is tends to be significant, and that gap is where financial stress lives. Build the full picture once on paper with real numbers for every line item. It is uncomfortable. It is also the only way to make decisions that actually improve the situation rather than decisions that feel like improvements but are not. The second move is treating geographic arbitrage as a serious option rather than a theoretical one. The financial difference between earning $200,000 in San Francisco and earning $200,000 in Austin, Nashville, Raleigh, or Phoenix is not marginal. It is life-changing. Lower state income tax, lower housing costs, and lower childcare costs in secondary markets can convert a tight $200,000 budget into a genuinely comfortable one with real savings capacity without changing the income number at all. The third move is a deliberate audit of lifestyle costs that were absorbed incrementally and have never been evaluated collectively. The car lease that made sense when signed, the private school that felt like the obvious choice, the gym membership, the meal delivery service, the business class upgrades. None of these felt like a decision to sacrifice financial security. Together, they may represent $2,000 to $4,000 a month of spending that is consuming the margin that should be going into wealth building. Here is the reframe that I think is most useful for anyone processing the math in this video. $200,000 a year is a significant income. It is not the problem. The problem is the mismatch between what that number sounds like, both to the person earning it and to the financial and social systems around them, and what it actually enables in a 2026 cost environment. That mismatch produces decisions that would look different if the real numbers were on the table. Private school feels affordable on $200,000. The actual monthly budget after running all the fixed costs might tell a different story. A mortgage at the top of the qualifying range feels manageable. The real margin it leaves for retirement contributions and emergency savings might not be. The people who are financially comfortable at $200,000 in 2026 are not the ones who earn the most within that bracket. They are the ones who have built a household cost structure that is honest about what the real take-home number is and made every major financial commitment based on that number, not the gross salary. That distinction, more than any single financial strategy, is what separates the earners who feel broke from the ones who are quietly building real wealth at the same income level. $200,000 a year is not a guarantee of financial security, but it is absolutely enough to build genuine wealth. If the structure of how you spend it reflects the reality of what you actually take home, not the illusion of what the gross number sounds like, the math is not working against you. The math is just telling you the truth. Drop a comment and tell me, does the $200,000 feels broke phenomenon match anything in your own experience? If this video helped you see your own financial picture more clearly, subscribe to Monkey Money because every week we bring you the real numbers behind the headlines. See you in the next video.